In the phase of preparation of the semi-structured interview, we consider that the work for the preparation of the research or survey is completed, meaning the analysis of the order, the construction of the problematic, the theoretical framework, the choice of concept, the definition of the scope of the survey, and the formulation of research questions and of their hypotheses for responses. All of these stages, as we saw previously, in the lesson that we saw with regard to prerequisites. In this lesson, we will be explaining what we mean by passing from hypotheses to the variables to be informed. So, we're setting off from the hypothesis that we have formulated. We have research questions and we have hypotheses for the responses. These response hypotheses will not directly lead to the formulation of questions for the survey, be they by closed questionnaires or by semi-structured questionnaires. We have an intermediate phase, which is to identify the variables that must be informed. An example, to the research question: what is the interest of trees in kitchen gardens in Java, in Indonesia? So I might have several response hypotheses. If I choose the theoretical framework of the economy of production, the hypotheses for the responses might be of the number of 3. First hypothesis, because trees provide financial income to families through the sales of products. Second response hypothesis, trees produce food which are consumed by the family and therefore contribute to enriching their diet, in particular for children, therefore to a good and balanced diet. Third hypothesis, trees require work which is more flexible in terms of work organization and often have a period of production which is longer than rice, for example. Therefore, the interest here is in terms of flexibility for work organization. So 3 hypotheses for the response to the question of what is the interest of kitchen gardens in Java for village dwellers. If I change the theoretical framework and I take that of the economy of heritage, my response hypothesis will be different. First hypothesis, because trees live for a long time, this allows us to plan income for retirement. This can be the heritage function, therefore. Second hypothesis, certain varieties allow us to have income at any moment, to have products that can be sold at any given time, and therefore can play the role of insurance against risks or health insurance or any other type of insurance. Second hypothesis. Third hypothesis, certain varieties live longer than men, for example, 150 years, and these trees will be passed on, and their interest resides in the heritage function that they represent. So these are 3 other hypotheses which are quite different because I'm changing the theoretical framework. So, starting off from these hypotheses, what do I do with them? How do I progress? For each of these hypotheses, I need to identify the variables for which I need to obtain information, meaning data. I can take an example once again on the hypothesis of a more flexible work organization when we're looking at trees, more flexible than for rice crops, for example. What are the variables which are relevant concerning this hypothesis. We will have a variable with regard to work organization and its flexible or non-flexible characteristic. We will have a variable in terms of seasonality of production. A very lengthy seasonality, the tree produces for 6 months. Very short seasonality, the fruit season lasts for 15 days. Or no seasonality. For example, cinnamon can be harvested at any moment from between 8 and 13 years of age. I have 5 years to harvest my cinnamon. So behind, we can see the variables, for example, seasonality and then flexible. I can do the work at this point, or I must imperatively do it at this point in the year. Now, these variables, we try to inform these variables, but it is not on the basis of these variables that I will actually develop my questions. I will not directly ask the question, is work in agroforests more flexible or less seasonal than work in the rice paddies? These are questions which, formulated in this way, will give me very poor responses. So the art, therefore, resides in asking questions which will give rise to rich and more complete responses. Amongst the variables that we identify, some are complex and cannot be directly informed. If, for example, I take the question of income from produce harvested from the agroforest, is this income of interest? To what extent? How important are they for Indonesian households? It's a rather complex variable. I can say to them, well, how much income do you have from your trees? We can try to have a quantitative data, which is income in local currency, etc. It's rarely accessible. It's data which is rarely accessible. Why? Because we're dealing with a far too complex research object. In an agroforest, we have 15 different varieties of trees, which will provide income throughout the year, either regularly or on a one-off basis. And the people that I will be questioning will be unable to say what is the income at the end of the year that they get from their agroforest. They don't have precise accounting system and they don't have this information. In this case, I'm going to try and approach the data to inform the variable using indicators. For example, an indicator of the importance of income from trees can be the type of objects that I can purchase with this income. We will therefore move from a question of how much do you earn from your trees to a question, what do you purchase with the income from your trees? If the answer is, for example, I buy a moped, a sewing machine, I invest in a production tool, I purchase fertilizers or seed, or another plot for rice. This will give me an idea of the importance of this income or the size of the income and even the economic function of trees. And this is what I call an indicator of the importance of income. So we have questions, response hypotheses, which stem from the theoretical framework. From these response hypotheses, I identify variables. And these variables will be informed by observations, by surveys. They can be informed indirectly through indicators. Now, what do we call data? What is data? Data is an answer provided by one interviewed person or one observation, if we're looking at direct observation methods, one response, therefore, which is provided to or which informs the variable. There it's one observation, therefore, or it's one answer from a survey. This is the data. For a complex variable, we can have one or two indicators that allow us to approach this variable. And for each indicator, we will have as many data as there are people surveyed or interviewed, or as there will be observations or measurements. When we have identified the variables to be informed, we will then choose the method by which we will obtain the information. Here there is a very broad choice. We can choose methods of direct observation, measurements, observations, or methods which call upon face-to-face interviews with people, and that is a survey. And in the survey, we have different ways of leading a survey, different survey tools. We have the semi-structured survey, and also answering a questionnaire. The choice of the method or methods that we will use to inform our variables is the object of the following lesson.